There still is a reality, which is why if you make trades based on a false narrative, reality will slap you in the face, right? So the whole conversation in this moment really is about whether the left and the Democrat Party is going to face reality, which is that the way they talk and the things they say and the way they operate are not popular with Americans. Or they can continue to imbibe a narrative that isn't accurate and that does not reflect the reality of what their fellow citizens think. Isn't that the issue here?
I think that you're talking about something that's hopefully about to happen, which is that a certain kind of base reality is too difficult to deny.
Mm. Well, if you keep losing elections, it's too difficult to deny, right?
Well, they've lost one just now, but this is going to be a very consequential one. First of all, it puts J.D. Vance, who I consider a friend, on deck. Man, is that guy smart.
Yep.
And good, combines all sorts of aspects of progressivism. I think he ran a campaign with Donald Trump as a loyal number two. But JD is a powerhouse in and of himself. I think he could run a campaign that would just be irresistible to all sorts of people. So I would like to just point out that you could easily have 12 years coming off of this election, and you could have a Supreme Court that was completely dominated by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and it will transform the country. So this is a very consequential election to have screwed up. It's not just that they lost an election. It's also the end of something. Because, you know, Obama, doesn't matter what you think of him and whether he was a disappointment to you in office, that was real star power. And you watched him degrade himself as he threw his support behind Kamala Harris. The Clintons are highly degraded. Gavin Newsom could not keep a straight face with the switch when Kamala was put forward. He said, oh, yes, it was a top-down inclusive affair. Ha, 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 ha. This was such a bad story that no one knew how to defend it. And I also think that, you know, Kamala Harris's apparent drop in IQ is due to the fact that nobody can explain the Democratic Party. It's a series of horse trades and intellectual half measures. And nobody knows how to, it doesn't have any coherence. Are you the party of sweetness and light? Are you the party of the working class? Or are you really the party of, the transgendered and financial billionaires worried about the carried interest exemption? It just didn't make any sense. And there was no way to defend it, and still got close to 50% of the popular vote because so many people are dependent on these narratives.
To me, the Democrat Party, and we're talking about reality, they're so divorced from reality in so many different ways. Like, they talk about being democratic, but Kamala Harris didn't go through any primary. They just appointed her.
This is a great point, because I think people didn't really update as to what happened after that point got made. So I started talking to my academic friends. I said, you can't say democracy is on the ballot. There's no primary. And immediately all of my poli-sci aware academic friends said things like, oh, no. A political party is free to choose whoever it wants. And democracy is, we've only really had these primaries since the 68 convention in Chicago of the Democratic Party. And the real thing is called the invisible primary, and everybody in the Beltway knows it, this whole thing. You're saying, oh, cool. So you just pulled the mask off and says, democracy is a binary choice between two parties that have given you every single president since Millard Fillmore. And that's democracy. Nobody's going to send their son with a rifle to fight for this vision of democracy. The thing that inspires us, that gets us to put our right hand over our heart, is the idea of a government by, of, and for the people not perishing from this earth. The idea of, this concept of perfectly legal. Something is legal means that you're allowed to do it. Something's perfectly legal means somehow there's a loophole in the law and you can't get tagged for it, even though it's completely wrong. Well, it's perfectly legal, perfectly permissible to just select a candidate. And it was an abomination. And it's kind of just fun because the same people had this tagline, democracy is on the ballot. Like those t-shirts were already printed figuratively. And so, yes, you've installed a candidate who was the worst candidate available until she became America's sweetheart. And the whiplash from that period of time just forced the machinery to reveal itself.
And it seems like that's one of the logical fallacies within the Democrat Party, but it's just one after another after another. And look, I know nobody's fully coherent, no political party, blah, blah, blah. There are always inconsistencies. But you look at they talk about being the party of minorities. Yet when black men don't go out to vote for them, they admonish them as a group and go, well, how dare you? All you black men, why haven't you done this? And you're going, is that anti-racist?
You know what we're doing? We're doing therapy. We've been through like a North Korean brainwashing experiment. And we can't believe that this happened. It's so bad. And every single person of any kind of originality of thought or independence of mind rejects it. Now, why did this ever work? I learned in part a lot about the US from having a podcast. And it was very popular with people I didn't expect. Truck drivers who really care about physics. Electricians who care about the Middle East. There are all sorts of people who solve puzzles every day, general contractors. And these people are in a creative field because every day is different. You never know what house you're going to show up or what trucking route or who knows what. And they've got time on their hands and they're not beholden. Nobody cares whether your electrician is MAGA or woke. As long as they get the job done and they leave your house in decent order and they don't charge you too much.
I would argue, Eric, that it's impossible to be a bricklayer and be woke, because to be woke is to be disconnected from reality, and to be a bricklayer is to be very much grounded in reality.
I agree. And so in general, most of the point I was trying to make.
Sorry, Eric.
That's all right. It was very forceful and commanding. I kind of enjoyed it. The way I saw it is that these people, by and large, were America's secret brain trust. And they're not having it because there's no reason. Now, if you take that and you compare that to the very highly educated, one of the arguments that the Democratic Party likes to make is, all the people with master's degrees and PhDs and JDs and MDs vote for us. And the answer is because you're an interest structure. And the workplace, if you're in a woke workplace, particularly large institutions that have to, I forget, what is it, above 15 employees, you have to follow the civil rights, legislation about inclusion, all this kind of stuff. Those workplaces are constantly demanding fealty to this woke parchment. And that's what's going to have to collapse. The contractors in general, they might vote Democrat or they might vote Republican, but they're not easily taken in because they have a relationship with the unforgiving. An electrician who starts to believe in crazy ideas is going to encounter 110 or 220 relatively quickly. It's a short ride.
And that's the beauty of talking to these people, because exposing yourself to reality encourages a simplicity of thought.
You keep saying reality.
Yeah. Okay, physics.
Well, I call it a relationship with the unforgiving.
Yeah.
You try to fudge something that isn't fudgeable. Like you see this very often if you take somebody who doesn't go hiking into the mountains. At some point, they'll just sit down and say, I'm tired. And you say, okay, I want to go home. Well, it's 8.7 miles down that way. We've got 45 minutes of daylight. So how does that work? The person just has no idea that they have to actually negotiate the unforgiven. So, do something in your life, play an instrument, climb a rock wall, do electrical work. You'll very quickly figure out whether you have a positive relationship with the unforgiven.